All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I am Jason Keath, founder and CEO of Social Fresh Conference. I'm very excited about today's webinar, Content That Converts. We've got Chris Moody in the house from Oracle Marketing Cloud. Chris is an old Social Fresh friend of Social Fresh. He's in the family. He's a past speaker. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I believe he's spoken at 3 or 4 of our conferences in the past. And he's always bringing great content marketing advice from the companies he's worked with, including Compendium and currently Oracle Marketing Cloud. So we're excited to get those insights. We're excited to give you guys a little bit of a story to tell when it comes to making your content work better for your business. So we're getting ready to get started. Please bear with us as we get rocking and rolling. If you guys just signed in, we have had some folks on the line here a little earlier. Please just type into the question box there on the GoToWebinar panel on your right. Type in what city you're in. We want to know what geography you're coming to us from. And type in what company, your city and company that you are representing today. We'd love to know what kind of range of companies we have on the call. We'd love to know where you're coming from. Looks like we have some folks from looks like Florida, London, Dallas, Texas, Washington, D.C., Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, Paris. Some awesome, great companies. Thank you, Lauren, for joining. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Jeremy. Awesome. Very cool. All right, I think we're ready to get started. I want to introduce myself and Mr. Chris Moody today. Chris Moody is joining us as the Director of Content and Social at Oracle Marketing Cloud. Really great company. We're excited to have them as a partner with Social Fresh and co-producing this webinar with them today. Chris is also a speaker, as I mentioned. And my favorite, he's a self-described slide dork. He's a sarcasm practitioner, as I struggle through that sentence. So we'll try to make sure to keep it dry and sarcastic today for you folks, and hopefully it'll be obvious when that's the case. Chris is also the co-host of the Content Pros podcast with Convince and Convert, a great podcast. I highly recommend checking it out. And he lives in North Carolina, where he told us earlier it's very sunny today, getting up into the mid 80s, almost 90 degrees down there. And he is a dad and a husband down in North Carolina. I am myself, if you haven't met me before, Jason Keath, founder and CEO of Social Fresh Conference. I am a keynote speaker. I talk about creativity. I talk about digital trends. I'm writing my first book called The Case for More Bad Ideas. I love to travel with my better half, Nikki's notes. If you need some help with productivity, you need help with restructuring your morning routine, she is an expert in that. She's made me way more productive. Check her out at NIKISNOTES, and her company name is Victory Rituals. So Chris and I are very excited to join you today for this webinar. We're really excited to talk about content. For folks that don't know, Social Fresh Conference is a social media conference. Hopefully, you know if you're on the call today. But if you don't, some folks, you might have found us through Oracle. Who knows? But we are the oldest or longest running social media conference. We've been doing this for six years now. We are doing our 17th conference on September 23rd through 25th down in Tampa, Florida. We've got Jay Bear, we've got Chris Brogan, Scott Monty, Sarah Evans, Patron will be speaking, Priceline, Buffer will be there, HP, Twitter, Today Show, American Eagle, just a little bit of info there. If you are a digital marketer, if you are a content marketer, social marketer, and you're looking for kind of advanced training, we have a single track, no panels, one stage. We keep it very actionable content, very advanced, and it's a can't miss networking opportunity. We even have food trucks this year. Highly recommend you check it out. Check out socialfreshconference.com for more information. And Oracle Marketing Cloud is doing cooler and cooler stuff. I'm really glad Chris is on the call with us today. Besides his great insights, they are a really cool company. For folks that don't know, Oracle kind of acquired and swallowed up the Eloqua company and the Compendium company, which were two kind of marketing software companies, Chris, that I really liked, especially Compendium, one of my favorites, which you worked at previously. Give folks just a very brief view of what Oracle Marketing Cloud is about today, beyond those two tools and what it is as an opportunity for some companies that might be on the call today.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing is we're trying to, in my job as content, so, well, we went over the titles. I lead a content social team, but my main goal is to help marketers grow in their career. And that's kind of the goal for Oracle Marketing Cloud as well. So we have a broad suite of solutions that are very integrated. So it's not just acquisitions that are sitting off to the side. Like we have content marketing, we have marketing automation, we have social, we have data, we have lots of really cool stuff that we're doing for both B2B and B2C. But we're trying to give marketers the tools and the ability to be successful. And that's been a big thing in the industry that I think we've seen with the evolution of Social Fresh too. I think we're still talking about the stuff we've talked about 10 years, and most folks really aren't executing on it to the ability that they should or that they can. So the tools are out there, and that's really our goal. Our goal is to give marketers a suite of solutions, whether they have 1 or 10 things within Oracle Marketing Cloud, to be extremely successful and hopefully get promoted, get the big job, become a CMO, and take us with them wherever they go.
Well, I think we all know a lot of things we should be doing, and I think we're just now getting to where the point that there is software out there like Oracle Marketing Cloud that can really pull all the pieces together. So I'm glad that you kind of spelled that out for folks that are looking for those solutions. All right, so we're talking about content that converts today. You know, one of the things I want you guys to keep in mind as we go through this webinar is to try to take notes, but don't take too many notes. We want you to watch the slides. We want you to stay in tune with what we're talking about. So really, my motto is to write down your aha moments, the things that really strike a chord in your mind as we go through that are big and new ideas specifically for your company. You know, kind of like screen grabs, you know, that you would do of the decks. Feel free to do those. You know, write these notes down as well, kind of the bookmarks of the big parts of the presentation that are most useful for you. And what we're going to do at the end is come back and give you some real action items based on those kind of aha moments that you wrote down. So don't worry about capturing everything. We are recording the webinar today. You will get the video recording, within 24 hours after the show. We'll email it out. So you'll be able to follow up, and you'll be able to follow up with questions on Twitter to either Chris or myself. Just use the hashtag SocialFresh, and we'll run with that after if we can follow up and answer any more in-depth questions that we don't cover during the webinar. So when we talk about content that converts, just to set the stage, I want to really talk about content that you're making and help you make more of this content that deep down is really helping build your business, and not just anecdotally, although that's great, and sometimes that's all we have, but really you're seeing metrics out there, you've connected the dots, and you know without a shadow of a doubt that this content you're working on day to day in this grind of content marketing and social media is really building your business. Otherwise, what we get, what we get is content fatigue. So when I talk about content fatigue, it's really what happens when you're investing all this time, all this energy, dollars, budget into content every day, and what we can really describe as a grind, I think, is sometimes it's positive when you're passionate about it. Sometimes it gets very much like a fatigue when you're not seeing business impact, when you're seeing little to no business impact. So it's not always our fault. Sometimes we have a guess about what's going to work well, and it just doesn't land. And we need to go out there and try something new, try something different. And sometimes we just don't have the resources or the tactics or the strategy behind it. What we want to do today is help you with the strategy and the tactics that we've seen work. And we want to focus you on the content that we think is going to work for most businesses out there and provide that impact so that you can avoid content fatigue. So that's our goal today. I think all of us kind of felt this once in a while, some more than others, but we really want to get you out of that funk and make sure that all the content you're producing is building your business's bottom line. So that's the problem. The result, what happens when we have content fatigue, is no investment. So if our content is not obviously building the business, what results is either from our own kind of, maybe you're one person in your small business, or maybe you rely on a budget that's above you in your company, or a boss that sometimes may or may not understand what you're doing. Either way, if you're not able to connect it to a piece of content to prove that it's building your business, it results in a lack of money, a lack of love for the project internally, a lack of support very often, and, maybe personally a lack of passion. So that's kind of the downward spiral that we're trying to avoid. I don't want to get too negative. I think what we can really do is simplify things with some very clear steps, some tools, some resources that we're going to go through today that can make sure where that time is getting invested is important and is performing for you. So, Chris, this is one of the things I like to start content conversations off with because I think it's a good reminder for everyone. I don't think it's going to destroy, make or break your content marketing plan, but it's a really good reminder that content really succeeds when it makes your audience look cool in some way, whether you're looking smart because you shared a piece of data, whether you look very trendy or kind of ahead of the times because you're getting a report that's for data that most people haven't seen yet, whether it makes you look funny. These are reasons people share content. So I think it's always important to come back and ask yourself about the content you're making, whether it makes your audience, your potential audience, your customers look cool or not.
Yeah, I love this one, Jason. And just really quick, one key point on that is your audience, which if you actually don't know your audience, that's a huge issue. So, there's a lot of nuance within this one slide, and I think most people are like, yeah, make them look cool, got it. But you have to understand who the content is for, and you want relevant content for that audience. So, audience is a word that could spawn an entire webinar just to talk about truly understanding the motivations, pain points, desires of the people you're sharing content to. So that's just one thing to keep in mind as we go through this for all the listeners. Like, definitely understand your audience and the different personas you have to market to.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And understanding not only your audience, but who they're going to be sharing with, what their audience is, what, as you mentioned before, a lot of the folks that Oracle Marketing Cloud talks to, they care about getting promoted. They care about, moving their career to the next path. And, you guys can help them do that by showing them their successes to their boss. I think that's a really good key understanding of what your audience cares about and what makes them look cool or what makes them have, a positive change in their life. So I think understanding their motivations is a big part of this as well. All right, so we did promise to go over some tools that both Oracle and Social Fresh use. These are definitely not all the tools we use when we create content, when we share content, when we're measuring, et cetera. But these are definitely some of the key ones that I know Social Fresh uses and that Chris is using over at Oracle Marketing Cloud. So we want to go over these briefly. If you have any more in-depth questions about anything we list here, go ahead and throw it into the questions tab, throw it up on Twitter after the webinar, and we will respond to them as much as we can today and ongoing. So number one, curation tools. This is something that Social Fresh uses a lot. We have a very small team, so we do a lot of curation, whether we're sharing great links on Twitter from around the industry, whether we're crowdsourcing stuff in a Facebook group for a post. We go onto Quora and look for guest bloggers for our post. We use Google Forms to contact our past speakers to get tips from them, and I'll review an example of that here in a second. But these are all kind of tools that we use, free, open tools that allow us to crowdsource things and curate great information for our audience. And Chris, you're going to talk about...
Secondly, one that I mentioned... Sorry, Jason. Okay. Yeah, I'm so passionate about this one. I always talk over you when we talk about interviews because I mention this everywhere. There's so much content that exists inside your company and with your partners and your customers. And if you don't talk to them, you'll never get that content out. So your salespeople are answering questions on the phone. Technical support, they're answering questions on the phone. Customer service, questions on the phone. Pretty much every single person that you work with has information that is probably not on your website, probably not on your blog, probably not shared out to relevant audiences. So one thing that I love to recommend and we love to do is actually take your mobile device, which every single person on this webinar has a smartphone. They all have record capabilities. Just sit down with someone and have a conversation with them and figure out how you can turn that into content. It's a really easy way to create more content and have it very relevant for your audience.
Yeah, I love that. And we kind of do that with Google Forms. We do that with interviews as well. And we use it. It's a good transition because we use GoToWebinar for that as well. We did our content marketing template, and we just did some recorded interviews using GoToWebinar for some of the insights from a few folks like Paula Berg and Chris Brogan to help build our content marketing template. And GoToWebinar we're also obviously using for all our webinars. We use it for some of our speaker training. We use it in a lot of ways. It's a really great piece of software. So I think that's another great one. Chris, tell me about Compendium and what Oracle Content Marketing is today.
Sure. So I won't get salesy at all, but our entire blog is powered by Oracle Content Marketing. So that was Compendium. That's the company I came in from. And one of the cool things that happens when we create content in there, one, it has all of the proper categories, which are tags or topics, depending on what platform you use. But we have every single piece of content tagged by persona and by funnel stage. So when you talk about being pragmatic about content and content that converts, we can tell you to the number how many posts we have for the awareness stage for a VP of marketing persona or a CMO persona or whoever we're trying to target. So it's a way that we're very, very focused on providing the right message to the right person at the right time, and not just saying that on some fluffy slide, actually delivering on that, which will lead into number 8, and I can build on that story when we talk about how we use Eloqua with content.
Very cool. And Compendium also talks a lot about SEO, and we'll talk about that on number 6. So I really like the SEO portion of Compendium, and I think that's very helpful for a lot of folks. But let's talk images real quick. We partner with Shutterstock for images at Social Fresh. We use them mainly for kind of Illustrator vector graphics instead of maybe stock photography that you might think we use. We also use Canva and Photo's kind of a mobile editor that's really good on iPhone. And you don't have to use these specific photo editors or photo sources, but I think it's really great. I think it's really important to have several tools that help you create visual images quickly and easily without having to worry about where you're going to get them. Another one that we use is just professional photographers at our conferences and making sure we're getting as many photos as possible in that big event that we do and be able to use them throughout the year. So I think setting these up, test these out. Shutterstock's kind of expensive if you don't have the budget for it. I completely understand that. There's other stock image services that are more affordable and just as great. Shutterstock's one of our partners. We love them. But check out these and find your own kind of set of images and make sure you have those resources pre-planned. Chris, talk to us about Google. Talk to us about SEO, keyword research, and how important that is to Oracle.
Sure. So this one will be really quick, but if you don't know how people are finding your content or what other types of content they're looking for, then you're creating content without much of a purpose. So keyword research can really help you to understand what terms are people searching for when they find you, or categorically as an industry, what are people looking for specific to content marketing or specific to social media. So it's very, very easy to do. There are tons of free tools. If you just Google keyword research, you're going to find tons of stuff to actually analyze search trends and understand how people are finding various types of content.
Yeah, I think you need to be looking at that on some level. If you're not, that's definitely a key area that I would write down as one of your aha moments that you definitely need to be researching in. And if you're already doing it, there's usually a lot more in-depth data out there that you can gather. I think you can always be improving in that category. For number 7, I want to talk about something that I think is very important, which is automation. I don't think automation is a dirty word as long as it's not the only thing you're doing in content marketing. I think it can save you a lot of time. I think there's a lot of intelligent automation happening out there on the publishing side with Buffer and CoSchedule. These are some of the ones we've used. Many of them we still use. CoSchedule is one that we use in WordPress, integrates WordPress really well to share blog posts. Edgar is a great tool for sharing a lot of different kinds of content in a lot of different ways on social networks and kind of automating those to go out. The Deliver It is kind of an RSS to Twitter, RSS to social network publisher. And Twibble is very similar. Twibble, you can actually, besides its great silly name, you can actually get people to subscribe to help you share your stuff. So people can sign up, for instance, at socialfresh.com/fresh team is a forward we have. And they can say, we want to share every time Social Fresh publishes a blog post out to our own Twitter account if they really trust you. So that's something where you can actually get a team of people, whether they're your customers or people that, employees, stakeholders of some sort, to help you share out. You don't have to use all of these. You don't have to use any of these, but, finding a few key ways to automate some stuff and save you some time, I think is important, especially for the small businesses out there. And like I said, it's not a dirty word as long as you don't overdo it and it's not the only thing that you're pushing out there. So let's talk about Eloqua, Mr. Moody, about the kind of automation side of what you guys are doing over there.
Well, we were a customer before we were acquired. And again, not being salesy, everyone should have some form of marketing automation. I mean, that you cannot do it yourself, no matter how big your team is. You just don't scale. People don't scale to keep up with the pace of content that everyone wants now. And the way that we use Eloqua, there are a million things that it can do. But one thing that we're working on now is bridging the content that we create with the campaigns that are sent in Eloqua. So the personas I mentioned earlier with Oracle Content Marketing, we're actually mapping those into segments. So we can say, for this group of people. Here's the persona they match to. So we automatically have this big queue of content that we can just drag into emails. And now we're starting to serve up the most relevant story, and we can change their lead score as they progress. And if they've already read something, we're not sending it to them again. We can swap it in for something else. So there's just a lot of user experience things that should happen there to help people on their content consumption and to really continue a journey and build a better relationship with you as a brand.
Awesome. Very cool. I think, for me, I think the scale point there is very important, because once you get over like 100 leads for your company, it really starts to become difficult to keep track of that just using, maybe Gmail or spreadsheets, et cetera. And I think having some type of marketing automation / CRM, solution there connected to your content is very important. This is a very tactical one, number 9, that I use that I think more people could get value out of if it's right for you, and that's ScreenFlow. ScreenFlow started as a screen capture software where you could, I could record this webinar, for instance, outside of GoToWebinar and save it as a video file. Now, they've progressed into editing, and which is where I use it the most, but it's a very versatile tool. I've used it for audio editing for podcast. I've used it for video editing a lot. It's better than anything else I've used. It's like $100, I think, piece of software if you search for it out there on Google. Super worth the investment. Really versatile, really easy to use, and does a lot of different things that I think are important for content marketers that are doing anything like a webinar or doing video or doing podcast. I think it's a great tool that you can use for all of those. Another one that I know you value a lot, Chris, but is crucial to what Social Fresh does is partnerships. And again, I've got an example coming up that we'll talk about. But we're doing a partnership right now with Oracle. We love to work with Oracle. We do partners with all of our sponsors at our conference, all of our speakers. We try to produce ebooks and webinars and events with other companies, blog posts with other companies, curating content with them. And it really spreads your promotion ability, really spreads your creation ability. And again, is another way for you to focus on things, on pieces of content without spending as much time and getting kind of a bigger bang for your buck. So if you're not working with other companies, if you're not working with stakeholders, that I think that's a big piece. And, it's not technically a tool necessarily, but I think it's a crucial piece, a crucial kind of strategy and even tactical piece that saves us a lot of time and gives us more power when we're creating our content to reach more people. The bonus here, Chris, talk to me about testing new content in one-to-many presentations for feedback.
This was something I started to do last year. Last year, I had almost 100,000 miles traveling to events, which is insane. I've never traveled that much before. Not personally a huge fan of that much travel, but one thing that I started to do at events, much like a comedian tests out a new routine, when we're producing content, sometimes it does happen in a vacuum, and you're just working with the main contributors or the main people that help you produce the content your brand creates. So I would start to pull out concepts and things that we thought would resonate with the market or potential pain points, maybe even a new asset, and try to work that into a presentation. So whatever that presentation was, I would test some new stuff and just see how the crowd responded to it and talk to people after when they come up for questions. And that actually led to the most recent presentation I've been given, which was 10 ways to guarantee you have a marketing job in 10 years. So it started as something personal. Yeah, I was just like, man, the industry's not progressing the way I want. There's some things we need to discuss. And it gradually started to build, and that's how I packaged it up. But it all started from discussions and just putting things out there and talking to people. So, there are ways to mine various people for ideas and content. And this was one that just came into fruition last year that I really like, because it's very easy and seamless to work something new into a presentation you're going to give anyway and just see what happens and build on it.
I love it. Awesome. All right, folks, those are our tools, our 10 tools for making content easier. If you have some that we didn't mention that you use that you think are great to save you time, that allow you to promote content better, allow you to create content better, please do share them in the questions tab so that we know about them. And if it's not obvious, let us know what that tool is for. We'd love to hear from you guys, so please do. I know you guys are doing great work out there as well. We'd love to hear what you're up to. And if you have specific questions about these, throw them into the questions box. Shoot us on Social Fresh hashtag on Twitter, and we will respond. Okay, so let's dive into the kind of the three main sections that we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with what success looks like for both Oracle and Social Fresh when it comes to content marketing. We're going to talk about, how we measure that, how we think about the strategy of it. So start us off with how what does content success look like for you guys at Oracle Marketing Cloud?
Well, I think there's two main things, love and money. And we actually have a presentation that is not directly tied to our content strategy, but it's, for the love or money type style deck. But, love is a big word that a lot of companies are scared to use. And I've always been a big fan of this because you want people to have an affinity for your brand. You don't want them to like you. You say like us on Facebook, but you really want them to love you. You want them to tell everyone about you. You want them to take your company or your brand or your product with you if they move somewhere else. That's not that's not mediocre, it's not lukewarm. So our goal is actually to provide solutions to help marketers get promoted. I said this earlier, but when we were defining our content strategy, we have a simple 3-page version and then various other versions that we present. But that was one very important thing. It was our mission statement that we're passionate about the industry. That's why we get up every day and we can continue to produce content, do social, and it doesn't feel monotonous. It does not feel like the treadmill where you're just doing the same thing every single day because we care about it. We're marketers marketing to marketers. And I take a lot of pride in that and a lot of responsibility. So that's the first thing. For us to have successful content, we want to build the actual marketers that we're reaching. We want them to feel like we're providing education, we're providing tools, and we're actually helping them grow in their career. It's not fluff. We have to deliver on that. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. And then the other is money. So this is how I keep my job and how our team, makes sure we're successful. So they're both equally important, honestly. But we really do obsess over qualified leads. And content and social are two very vital sources of money for our business unit. And when Jason and I were talking about this, we wanted it to be a bit behind the scenes where we share some things that we're actually doing. And there is no secret sauce. I think Jay Bear would be the first one to tell you. So there's a slide that we'll hit on in a minute that will talk specifically to this, but it's important, right? We have to bring in business. That's marketing's function. We support sales. We have to help generate sales. So we track our content and our social efforts to see how it's bringing in qualified leads, not just any lead, because we all know we could spam that. Just like if your boss says, hey, followers is a very important metric. I want you to grow our follower count by blah, blah, blah for the year. Any smart social person is like, okay, whatever the number is, I can hit it because there are ways to game it. You can't game qualified leads.
Well, Kristen, talk to us about exactly what qualified means for you guys. What does that look like?
So that's to a point where sales should talk to them. So there's a more detailed technical definition that I'll spare everyone on the webinar with. But, essentially, marketing will bring in a contact, if you will, and if they are intelligent enough in the conversation or the product need or there's a fit with their business for them to actually talk to a sales rep or a business development person, then that would be a marketing qualified lead at its simplest. It is more complicated than that, but essentially someone that marketing brings in that should talk to sales.
Yeah, so there's specific demographics that you guys have realized make good customers for you, whether it's company size or title of a person, et cetera. I don't know if those are for Oracle. I'm just throwing them out there because I know some companies use those. And, if they meet certain criteria, they move on to a salesperson. And that's the big measurement for you. I really like that. I think that's something we're doing more of at Social Fresh, and we just need to get better at it. So I like that detail that you're emphasizing. Talk to me about what worked for you guys recently. Some of these examples, I'll just touch on them briefly.
So this is a relatively top secret slide. I won't mention everything, but this is what I use when I'm communicating how our past year went. So we actually created a new style of content, Modern Marketing Essential Guides, which was a risk, but it was a broader campaign. It was something new, a little bit more lengthy than we've done in the past for most of our content. But that brought in 10,000 form submissions plus, right? A lot of people came in. And when we look at the actual individual contributors of marketing qualified leads, each one that we produced was in the top 5 of our assets. So it wasn't number 1, but between 2 and 5. So that was really big. We still have some single topic guides, which I'll skip over that, but we're going to revisit those. From a content and social perspective, we hosted influencers at our event and spent some time with them and actually tracked a net promoter score, and that was a huge change. So, Social Fresh is a great event, right? But there are things as a content team you can do to take it offline, to actually meet people in person and understand what makes them tick, how you should be communicating. So we tried to do that, and that was a great success. And it just so happened that this slide mentions Social Fresh as well. But, we were named a top 10 corporate blog, which is something we're really proud about. We may not be the best designed blog or the best resource blog, but we're creating relevant content for our audience, and I'm really proud of that. And just 2 weeks ago, we won a big email campaign award for a program we put together, and Digiday recognized us there. So, that is kind of how our year went, but much of it is driven by the things we discussed earlier: relevancy, things that people care about, what motivates people. And this is not the award-winning one, but it's another one that I thought was really great. We have a B2C segment that we serve with the Responses product, and we did a lot of research. We partnered with Edison Research, and we tried to understand how people plan to spend for the holidays and how they actually spend for the holidays. So it follows the same people around and understands a lot about them. And we turned that into a broad campaign. So there was a big asset, there were smaller assets, there were ads, there were landing pages, there were all kinds of other paid promotion we did. But you can see it's not just like download the PDF.
Yeah, and it looks like you're definitely investing in long form. You've got the MMEG here. How long are these? I assume they're PDF booklets. How many pages are we talking? Just so people get a general idea.
So there's a huge range, but I think for the essentials guides, you may have some that are 6-7 pages and some that may be pushing 20. The bigger research pieces, they're going to be a little longer, but it really depends on the fit and where it falls in the journey. So we wouldn't say, hey, everyone on the Social Fresh webinar, thanks for joining. Here's a 50-page ebook for you to download, which you guys will see after this. There's going to be a 1-page PDF we're going to send, which is a nice infographic.
Yeah, we're going to send that after the webinar to folks as an add-on. And I think those are two places people need to look more at: is very short, kind of single page, 2-page PDF resources, kind of cheat sheets, I call them, as well as very long, 20, 30, 40, 50 page, super long form resources. I think that's kind of where the results are. So for us at Social Fresh, I want to talk about what's successful for us. What does content look like when it succeeds? And we have two things that we're really looking to do more of. And this is a transition for us. It used to be, one of the metrics, and still one of our main metrics, is email leads. And it used to be, how many leads can we get? How many emails can we add to our database? How can we go from 10,000 to 20,000 to 30,000 emails, right? Today, we focus less on the number and more on just the quality of those relationships. So we're looking to build trust, which means we're looking to give correct, helpful, actionable, and consistent content to our target audience. So social marketers, people that are doing social media and content marketing and digital marketing every day. And then we want to help them an additional time. So as we build that trust, we want them to come back so we can help them again and get that cycle going. We call that the fan loop, especially for people that haven't spent money with us yet, people that return to Social Fresh for resources that are building that trust and building that relationship. That's our goal. And hopefully, and we know for sure the more they return, the more likely they are to become a paying customer, paying for one of our online training programs or the Social Fresh conference. So the metrics we look at are still email leads. We're looking more at qualifying those leads, like Chris was mentioning. We're looking at how many times we can get touch points on multiple platforms, whether it's an app, our email, our podcast, our blog, our conference, etc. And trying to get existing customers to become repeat purchasers, or trying to get fans to become customers. So those are kind of the success points that we look at specifically. This is a post that really represents, I've referenced it a couple times, really represents a lot of the things I've talked about already. Partnerships. This post was created through a Google form. We sent out to a lot of our past speakers for Social Fresh Conference and asked them what one of their top tools that a lot of people might not know about is, and asked them to kind of list why they thought it was. And you can Google it out on our website if you want to look at it. But the numbers here show the success. It's probably our most shared blog post ever, and it's been up for about a year now. And the numbers are actually incorrect because we switched our website over to www in between then and now. It's been shared over 10,000 times. I think it's gaining on 12,000 total. So those tweets are only in the last, it's about 3,000 tweets in the last month or so. So it really gets shared a lot. And all those shares are coming from partnerships. So, we've worked with, Mixpo and Buffer, and a few other tools that are actually on the list. We didn't work with them before we made this list, but after we realized they were going to be on the list, we reached out to folks who were on the list and partnered with them and asked them to promote it. And it behooves them to promote it because they're on a cool list that's getting shared a lot, and it helps promote their company. So, we use partnerships, we use curation, and we repurposed content. This is content that we've also featured in other ways, in other decks, and we really focus on kind of getting the versatility of the content out there. And of course, I'm calling out here with the other green arrow to our Social Fresh Tips email newsletter, which is, our main goal, to get email leads and work them through kind of that trust agreement for Social Fresh. So, Chris, let's talk about content creation real quick. Let's talk about how Oracle creates content. And I know you have this, I forget how you described it, overly complex graphic that we can pull up that you can talk about. And I'll pull up the longer version of it too, so people can see.
Yeah, as you're pulling it up, I'll give the lead in. So I didn't create this. This was actually our head of brand and creative on our team. But within a large company, for those who represent large companies or agencies hoping to serve large companies, there are a lot of stakeholders involved in a big piece of content. There's so many things you have to consider. I mean, at the very top, it was talking about strategy. And as you can see here, I mean, you're getting into landing pages, social posts, banner creation. You have to have all these variations of that one piece of content. Yeah, and I mean, we have to go through as a content team, and I can tell you what we're working on right now. We made, in my opinion, a very smart hire and added Jeffrey L. Cohen to our team, which some of you on the webinar will know. I know Jason does. So the longtime Social Fresh guy, but we have to map this into a process and more of a workable calendar, because as you look at this now, there are different people leading lots of these stages. I mean, we have siloed teams that all work together to get this done, but there's a lot of synergy that has to happen, and I know that's a buzzword, but that's truly what it is. I mean, you have to work together and communicate to get all of this stuff done, because when a piece of content launches, you don't want to launch with just that piece of content. You want to enable your social team with their ads, their images, stuff that will get more shares than just the text post. We have to have the great-looking images in our blog posts. We want to get it on the website. We're going to hit it with ads and sponsorships and partnerships. So when you actually look at content creation and how it starts to scale within a big company, it's not just this small little content team doing cool stuff. Yes, we might drive 98% of the copy and deliver that to the relevant folks to get that designed, but it's a big, big process.
Very cool. And I mean, it's good. It's really good to see the complexity of that and how organized it is. If you had to call out just one or two pieces that you think people could learn the most from for that process, what would you say? What do you guys do really well?
It would be strategy and strategy. Yeah. What do we do well? I think we've actually found a very good balance between content and demand working together, and also finding a pretty solid brand standard. And there is an Oracle Marketing Cloud look and feel, which in my opinion, as someone that is a bit design oriented, looks great. I mean, that we've done some amazing looking assets, and I am biased, but I feel really good about the stuff that we produce. So we have to take those ideas and turn that into something that everyone on this webinar cares about. And you guys know, I mean, we get hit with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and pieces of content a day. So if it doesn't stand out, it doesn't look great, it doesn't have the right messaging to you, you're going to just hit the delete button. So it's really important.
Yeah, I like the consistent feel you guys pull off. I think it's really good. And I know whenever a piece of Oracle content comes on my screen, I know it. And I think that's a really good success metric on its own. So let's talk about Social Fresh creating content. Definitely a different system. One of the things that we emphasize is something I call the vanilla ice rule of content marketing, which is, and we're trying to do more and more of this every day, but that's focusing on one big piece of content whenever possible, and then deriving, bits and pieces from that, reusing it, reshaping it, pulling a blog post from a video. The best way we can show that is basically, our number one product is our conference. That's the thing that we're working on the most. It's our priority. So we take conference sessions and we make webinars out of them. We take conference sessions and make blog posts out of them, and we try to repurpose that content as many ways as possible. We talk to those speakers like that, the blog post I just showed you, and we get the speakers to tell us what their top tools are, right? We get the speakers to come on our podcast. We try to use as many curation, crowdsourcing, automation things as possible to catch up and have a large voice in social media to make sure we're touching each potential fan, each potential customer as much as possible on as many different social networks and getting a lot of touch points and a lot of quality touch points. But we also want to focus our kind of content creation time and energy on fewer pieces of content. So for us, the big thing for that is our conference. Tangentially, we do some training programs online, we do some webinars, things like that. Most of them are free, and we try to make them big and then repurpose them. We will repurpose this webinar. We'll repurpose several of the slides in this webinar as their own blog post, as their own social post on Facebook and Twitter, and really try to, like I said, focus on fewer pieces of content and repurpose them and get as much value out of them as possible. We'll talk about our bigger challenges for both Chris and I at the end of it, and think it'll reference back to this process for us because it's not easy doing this. And one of our challenges is actually having kind of too much content and trying to pull those pieces together sometimes, which I think is a unique challenge. But I've seen more and more organizations kind of facing that same kind of element. So another thing on here, Facebook groups and Twitter, we use very much as curation tools, as community tools, and promotion. And I think both of those are really great for us. So here's a blog post of JetBlue that we produced that performed really well for us. I got a really high quality audience and some leads out of. That was actually just a summary of our conference post. Down on the left here, you'll see a Sarah Evans session that we did at 2 conferences last year. It was so successful, we made it into its own webinar, and it was probably one of our best webinars of all time. People really loved the over 100 tool and software suggestions from Sarah. So those are a couple ways. And our YouTube channel is a great example of us repurposing content in many ways. And this is a kind of an example of humor that we do. One of the things that we're trying to do with branding, as Chris mentioned, is really celebrate kind of the inside behind the scenes jokes and stories of social marketers. We do every year we do a post on signs that you work in social media. How you might work in social media if type things and do a big list, and it's fun, and it's not necessarily something that's going to create leads for us, but it's something that creates community and creates trust and really kind of builds the rapport with our customers and creates that fan loop. And this is an example of that. Kind of some fun some e-card ripoff things that we call fresh e-cards that we use, stealing a good idea, and we share these on Twitter a lot, and we're doing some more right now actually for the upcoming conference. All right, Chris, let's talk about promoting content. I think this is a big challenge for a lot of people. I think we talk about content, creating content. Everyone's creating content. Everyone's got some type of strategy, but I think a lot of people just leave the promotion out. They will do some of the automation we've talked about. They will push it out to Twitter and the social networks. But as far as having a promotion strategy, I think that's a place we can all really improve in various ways. So talk to us about how Oracle promotes their content.
Awesome. Sorry, I had a bit of a delay with the microphone there, but I think that's a really crucial point, Jason, because in many companies that, well, I wouldn't say many, in some companies that I've worked in or observed, it's the methodology and the model is, okay, we're going to do a big asset every quarter. We're going to do a webinar about that asset. We're going to post it on social media. We're going to write the blog post. Then we're going to give each other high fives and go out for drinks and plan what we're going to do next quarter. And that's what they do. And you do it quarterly, and you have the same thing every single time. That doesn't work well today. Social doesn't work like that anymore. I mean, you guys know how difficult it is to build an audience on Facebook now. It's just not the same. So we try to layer our content into literally everything that we do. We work very, very closely with the demand team, so much so that they join our team call every other week. So the folks who are responsible for building the demand campaigns and sending those emails to nurture the leads and grow those leads into customers, we're talking to them at a minimum every other week to figure out how our content strategy and our plans fit with their schedule, and we map out on the calendar together what we should be producing. And we just did a huge overhaul. We planned for this fiscal year what we're going to do, and we've changed the structure completely based on feedback last year. So that's a huge area for promotion because there's tens and thousands of people that's going out to. And also field. I mean, Oracle as a whole does, I don't even know how many thousands of events. I mean, Oracle Marketing Cloud does tons, and our field marketing team helps manage this relationship with Social Fresh. They plan a lot of our events, and we try to coordinate to have a leave behind asset when we do that, or what's the big thing we should promote while we're there? What should everyone know? Then obviously you have the blog and social. One that a lot of people do skip over is SlideShare, which I wrote specifically on here because we've had a tremendous amount of success with SlideShare, especially infographics. Everyone thinks just put your presentations there, but infographics are killing it on SlideShare. And then the paid social portion, we don't promote every single thing that we do. We don't have the budget for that, but we're very scrappy in what we do promote, and we make sure that it's tied to a business strategy. We don't just promote things because they're cool necessarily, but there are some pieces where it may not even be a gated asset. It may not drive leads, but we want to get out there for awareness. So we'll put money behind that. Obviously, advertising partners and paid advertising, those are things that we do to promote. And presentation leave behinds. This is a big one. It can be a bit.ly link or a branded shortened link, but every time you're in front of people, you should leave them wanting more and give them a way to get that. And I think that's something that a lot of content marketers are trying to focus on now, because you have people in a captive room or a captive audience, even on your blog. Like, what is the next step? What do you want them to do when they're done with that blog post? And one thing that we were just talking about yesterday was, having a better call to action at the end of our blog post, like a visual call to action to do X, Y, Z, whatever we want them to do. So that's something that we're trying to get even better at, because promoting it is not easy. You only have people for a limited amount of time, and you only get one chance to make a first impression. I mean, that's true, right? If your content's terrible and you don't guide them where they should go next, then they're done with you.
That's I love that, the presentation leave behinds. I've started doing that when I present in person at events, having some type of PDF, checklist, or what I call cheat sheets. Chris Brogan's actually going to talk about this as a broader content strategy, like you're talking about it, then of a blog post, and then of a webinar, presentation, whatever. Actually, what he calls content upgrades. So I'm looking forward to that at our next conference, and I think that's a really good add-on that people can do more of. All right, so Chris, let's talk about this quote from you. We were talking about one-offs before the webinar today, and just talk to people about what you mean by one-off and why you think people should be avoiding them at all cost.
Sure. So to me, a one-off is a piece of content or an asset that you produce that does not fit into anything else you're doing. So if you map out everything you're doing as a marketing team, there should be overarching campaigns that guide your efforts based on business goals. So if I sound preachy right now, it's because I am preachy about this. I think most marketers are dropping the ball on this, and it's bad for our industry as a whole. We have to map our marketing efforts to business results and business goals. And then you have campaigns to help you get there. So when you're producing a one-off asset, that's something where, let's say I have a social media campaign for a social media product. So it's not just only on social. I would produce an asset, I'd have an email send, I'd have a webinar with a landing page. All this stuff that has to work together to make that happen is there. If I produce an asset that does not fit into anything else I'm doing, what do we do with that? We put it on the blog, we put it on social, and then people may consume it then, and then it's gone. But if you fit your assets into a broader campaign, they never die. You can always revisit it. There's always going to be someone starting that journey. So even if you run something last year, right, we're working on repurposing a lot of our stuff now, because not everyone read everything we did last year. I'd love to say they did, but they didn't. So there's going to be a million people where what we did last year is brand new to them. And if we don't have a way for them to engage with that, then we're toast. So never do anything that doesn't fit into a broader effort.
I love that. I love the one-off, and I want to come back to that because I think that's a good conversation for the challenge slide. And you guys are also using social ads a lot and promoting stuff on Twitter. Any quick insights for folks about Facebook ads, Twitter ads that you're using for lead gen? How's that working?
I think it's going very well. I mean, we're seeing a lot of movement towards LinkedIn and Facebook right now, and Twitter's always been great for us, I think, and definitely hit the visual element. So Lauren Harper and Cami Wending are the two amazing folks that do all of our social stuff for Oracle Marketing Cloud, but you have to have a strategy there too, and we do. But this is, you can see it's not just like, hey, go to this landing page and download this form. We're trying to catch people's attention with a nice branded image.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Okay, so for Social Fresh promoting content, I want to talk kind of strategy level and tactical level. I think both are important. For us, uh, the best thing we can do to promote content is to have content that's super shareable. So that post that we did, 16 tools that experts swear by, it's a good headline, it's really good content, it's simple content, and it's super useful. Something we like to call extreme usefulness. And we also think, there's other posts that we do that have a very unique perspective, trying not to say the same old thing over and over. I think that's very important. And then repurposing. I think when you repurpose, like Chris is talking about the one-offs, if you have content that only gets seen because you're promoting it for like a 3-day period on a blog post or as a Facebook post or whatever, if you're not reusing that, you're losing a lot of promotional value. A lot of your content can probably be promoted for 6 months or 12 months or years. We have some posts that we're still promoting that are, I'd say, 5 or 6 years old because they're still so good. They're still evergreen content. Not all of our content's like that, but you need to identify the ones that are to keep getting life out of them. And those are really good promotion angles because they're allowing you to kind of stretch the promotion over a longer time period, and it takes the stress off of you to perform very short term and get 1,000 leads or 100 leads in a week when you can do it over a course of a year and really identify those opportunities. Tactically, some of our biggest things, we have a great email list that we rely on a lot, that we send our our tips newsletter out, our conference news out to. That's a really great promotional piece for us, and always one of the first things I mention when we talk promotion. Twitter for us is great. It's not great for every company. We've built we're getting close to 100,000 followers on Twitter for all of our Twitter accounts. We've built that over 6 years, so it doesn't happen overnight, but it's something we've heavily invested in. Obviously, as a social marketing audience, that's a great place where we find our audience. Facebook ads is something that I'm a big believer in, especially video ads right now. We believe that they're super useful, especially with lead gen, not video ads for lead gen, but Facebook ads in general. There's a lot of different angles you can play there. It's a fast changing platform, so you have to kind of know an expert or be an expert to really get the best out of it. But I think that's something every business should be looking at a little more closely. Native ads, putting ads on networks that allow you to advertise it in a blog post, that allow you to put ads in very comfortable places for people to find it, whether that's on social networks or on blogs, I think is very important. And native ads, you don't have to find a native ad channel or platform like Outbrain. You can also go straight to the bloggers and put ads on blog posts that are super tailored for your content, and say, hey, read this also, because it also, because it's related to this piece. I think that's another overlooked opportunity. And again, for us, partners and community are kind of the same thing. We really value the community of people that exist in the Social Fresh family, from companies like Oracle that we work with, to the individual attendees that come back every year to our conferences, to the writers on our blog. Those are the people that really love to come back to our content and help us get it out there to a much larger audience. And I think investing in those partnerships and that community is really important as a promotional channel. Here's a piece that we have coming out. It's not published yet, a little preview, but we're doing more of these small tools as well to build up our email list. We think it's really great. These are 10 tools that we use to help with our conference planning, from our ticket vendor all the way to our mobile app, just giving really behind the scenes looks, a quick piece of conference. This is just a 1-page PDF. We put it out there. We get email leads. Based on that, we're writing more about tools, especially with our podcast, the Social Toolkit. So it's just a little glimpse behind of how we're targeting people and how we're targeting social marketers with information from behind the scenes. All right, so get your questions out there. We're going to talk about biggest challenges and then close down. Chris, what is the biggest challenge that you have, content marketing challenge at Oracle?
I think it's tying everything together. One of the things we hit on earlier was the fact that there's so many people involved with a content strategy, and we need to better unify the process and a calendar, so that having strategic events on there and the content plan and social plan for that, and really doing the common sense basic blocking and tackling that doesn't happen. So there's no tool to automatically do all of that for you, but we're working to do that and continue to build our audience and help them grow. And that's a big mission, something that we're passionate about, and put a lot of resources behind to do that.
Very cool. I think for Social Fresh, one of the biggest things that we see that we're trying to do better at is just using all of the content that we get. So, we have a conference where we get dozens of hours of video and interviews. We have a lot of community-driven efforts of curation and surveys, and we're doing really good at that. I think maybe we do less of that or more focused effort of it because we're generating so much content that we're not able to do a blog post on every single video that we get from the conference. We're not able to repurpose all of that content as well as we could. So I think that's something we're doing better at it each year. I think that's always something we're trying to improve upon, is just getting more efficient at that and using our time more and more wisely each year. So let us know what your challenges are, content marketing challenges on Twitter, hashtag SocialFresh. You can tweet both Chris Moody at CN Moody or myself at Jason Keath, Keath. But we are going to do some questions real quick. Chris, I know you have a heart out at the end. One of the things I want to remind you of is it's not just about what you learned today, but what you do tomorrow. So take all those aha moments that you had and write down at least 3 actions for yourself, action items for you to do this week. Set a reminder from a week from today to circle back on it and look at those action items once you get to settle down after the webinar. Write down 3 action items, 3 aha moments that you had from the webinar, and circle back in a week and see if you can put those into action, how quickly you can put them into action, and keep putting them on your calendar until you're able to kind of circle back and get something started there. Okay, so we've got some cool questions here. Chris, I think this is a good one for you. Talk to us about consumer-generated content. Talk to us about how Oracle uses that, or what your opinion is about getting content from the fans and how you use it.
So you should definitely do it, first of all. I cannot overstress the importance of user-generated content. We do a lot of user-generated content. We have a blog and a nice ecosystem. It's called App Cloud, but Eloqua and all of the other brands had strong communities. So we have a lot of folks who are supporting that ecosystem who want to create content. So they're coming through and trying to help write for the blog. We reach out to tons of influencers and thought leaders and even marketing professors to do content pieces. So we're always trying to have two-way dialogue and tap into folks. And there are simple ways to do it. I mean, we have some of it that can be automated with our tool, and I have some amazing stories I can tell everyone with more time. So if you want more detail about the best user-generated content story I've ever heard, you can send me an email. An easy one to remember, helpmechrismoody@gmail.com. That will email me and prioritize in my work inbox. So you can send that to me. But yeah, I mean, you have to do it. You have to tap into your people. And I would say find some common ground. So if there's a reason that is mutually beneficial, find that, talk to them about it, and share their story, especially if you have customers. I mean, the best podcasts we've done with Content Pros, in my opinion, so far, there have been amazing ones, but my favorite is still the one we did with Pet Relocation, which is a content customer for Oracle Marketing Cloud, but they're doing amazing user-generated stories. They post stories about pets being relocated, exactly what the name says. Yeah. But it's amazing. They have cute pictures, great stories, and it's a passion point and a question everyone wants answered before they buy.
Love it. Great feedback there, Chris. And quick question from Chantel. When you say we at Social Fresh and at Oracle, how many people make up a typical team who can execute a high-quality program? What's your team look like over there, Chris, that's working on a piece of content?
So for our team, we have myself and 2 other folks that are primarily oriented around content. But I'd say that all 3 of us are pretty savvy with social too, and I think you have to be now because they're one and the same, right? Social works with compelling content, not the other way around. Yeah. And I think our social team, I know our social team has 2 dedicated folks. So combined, 5 full-time folks. We do have creative resources that we tap into, and we have lots of other groups we work with. But going back to pre-Oracle days at Compendium, we were a team of 3. It was a marketing team of 3 people with smart agency relationships, and we did a blog post every day for pretty much 3 years. So you can be scrappy and do it. You just have to be smart with who you partner with, how you generate content, how you plan that out. And like you said, Jason, the Vanilla Ice rule, right? Like everyone knows Ice Ice Baby. I don't think anyone could list 3 other songs by Vanilla Ice. So find the one thing to concentrate on if you have reduced resources. Yeah, it's I call it an intentional one-hit wonder. Focus on one thing and, just keep knocking it out of the park over and over until you're tired of it, everybody's tired of it, and then you can try to get another one. For us, it's, for our conference, which is our biggest piece of content, we have, I'd say 3.5, 5 people working on it.
throughout the year. And then we staff up around the event for that. For our online content, blog posts, etc., it's anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 people max working on a piece of content. But we do a lot of curation, a lot of crowdsourcing, and we try to just be as efficient with our time as possible. And we're focusing less on, having to get something out every day and more on trying to get the right content out to the right people and making it more strategic and making it more helpful. All right, we've got a question on the one-offs, Chris. I know you have to go soon. I'll stick around and answer some more questions. But last question for you, Chris, on the one-offs. It can be really difficult to not do or to avoid one-offs when you're building a new social media team or when you have a variety of departments that want to see their content on the company Facebook page, company Twitter account, et cetera. Any thoughts how to start to build an infrastructure that helps you, eliminate those one-offs and as a company?
That's an amazing question. I think the first thing I'd say is, one-offs with social, I wouldn't worry as much about because social's more of a conversation anyway. So, you can engage with people. You can post funny things. You can retweet anyone you want. I mean, you do your own thing on social. I think you have an overarching objective that you're trying to accomplish, but I wouldn't worry about it there. From the content perspective, the first thing I would do is try to lay out on a calendar the big things you need to accomplish for the year. So that may be marketing campaigns, it may be email sends, it may be product releases, it may be strategic events, it may be a company event, but just lay everything out on the year or on a monthly calendar and try to say, all right, if we have to do this in July, what do I need to do before July to lead up to that? It's exactly how Jason promotes the Social Fresh conference, right? You don't just announce a conference and say, hey, in 3 weeks we're going to have a conference. See you all there. You have a drumbeat, you have content, and anything that feels like a one-off, there's probably something you can package it up with, or just combine it, and maybe you have a different, I'm using air quotes, a different category of assets that consist of the one-offs. And there was something that Eloqua did before Oracle called Grande Guides, and they were supposed to be marketing topics that they'd address and something short enough to read over a cup of coffee. That was the whole name, Grande Guide. And that may be a way you could find something like that. You may say, hey, I have to address these other things, and it doesn't necessarily fit into this bigger bucket, but maybe you create a new bucket for it. And then there's easier ways you can leverage it and continue to repurpose it.
I love it. Great advice. Great advice. All right, Chris, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone else on the webinar. I'm going to stick around and answer a few more questions. We do have a few others in the chat box here, in the question box. If you have any last minute questions, please let us know in the question box. And follow up on Twitter at Jason Keath, JasonKeath, and at CN Moody, #SocialFresh. And Chris, thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
All right, folks, we do have a couple more questions. I'm going to try to answer them until we're done. If you do have to go, don't worry. Go ahead and log out of the call. We will send you the final video so you can recap. Do try to remember to write down your biggest aha moments and see if you can find 3 action items that you can start working on today or tomorrow. And do try to set a calendar reminder for yourself to follow up and circle back on those so we can try to create some action from today's webinar. Let's see. Thank you for everyone that's saying thank you. We do have someone asking, are there any, if you're trying to use ScreenFlow on a PC, is there any tips for that? I don't have anything that comes to mind specifically. I will look into that and see if we can come up with a recommendation for you there, Mike. Great question. Another question we had, the importance of infographics. I'm curious how much research goes into ensuring that the data is correct in an infographic. It seems with how everyone's connected, it's very easy for people to find even the smallest discrepancies in anything you share. Great question, Amy. I think with an infographic, one of the things that I feel like is the most important is just being very upfront and transparent about where the data came from. So for Social Fresh, we do a lot of, we used to do more infographics. We're probably going to continue to do them. But we do a lot of surveys. So we pull it from a survey. So, really we can't say, 90% of Americans believe that Twitter is awesome. What we could say is 90% of people that we surveyed or the Social Fresh community think that Twitter is awesome, right? So I think being very transparent, having the data source listed, how many people you surveyed, or if you got the data from somewhere else, linking to that content. A lot of times I'll see infographics point to like a Mashable post that quotes a stat and the Mashable post doesn't say where the stat came from. So I think finding data that has a good source and pointing to that source so people are very clear about where it comes from is important. I think it's a great question. And I think if you're not doing that, you're playing with the trust of your audience. And I think that's an important piece to emphasize. We're getting a couple questions if we can share the PDF that Chris reviewed in the slide that we had up briefly. You're definitely welcome to review that in the video that we're going to share. I will talk to Chris and see if he's allowed to share that out, and if we can, we'll email it out. If not, I apologize. We definitely shared some things, and Oracle shared some things today that are a little behind the scenes, and not all of it's going to be able to just be 100% out there, but we'll see what we can do. We had a question about reusing evergreen content. How do you recommend reusing content when there are dates on your blog? Do you lift directly and just repurpose from a different format, or do you just repost the blog itself? Do you link to the old content so people know it was originally published in, let's say, 2012, or how do you handle that? I think it's a great question, Heather. I think it depends on the content. I think you can republish a post and change the date on it if you think that's relevant, and update the post if possible. You don't have to update a ton if it's super evergreen. I think the best way, if you don't feel comfortable sharing it because it's got an old date on it, I think the best way would be to do an updated post of it. So either make it into a new format like a PDF or a slide share, or make it a new blog post and just link back to the old one and say, this is the updated version. We don't think a lot's changed. Here's a few updated pieces. I just think be transparent about it. And yeah, we definitely share stuff from Social Fresh that's years old and has a date on it. And I think it's fine because the content is still really good. We have a social media audit piece and a community manager guide that are both probably 5 years old that still get tons of traffic, and we still share them all the time with old dates, and we think they're great content still, and that people still love to share those. So I think that's fine. Any tactical tips on how to reinvigorate an old but fantastic piece of content? For example, Gary Vee talks about following the trends topics on Twitter. Any ideas? That's a great question. I think finding really good, we were just talking about this, reusing old content. I think it's always great to do kind of like serial content. Chris Moody was talking about our blog awards that we do once a year. I talked briefly earlier about our You Might Work in Social Media If post, a list post that we do. I think those are great. Another version of that is to do the surveys. So, we had that post that we talked about that was 16 tools that experts swear by. We can redo that post every year and just survey different speakers that we've had. We've had hundreds of speakers at our conferences, so we can add in new tools and new speakers into that conversation. I think bringing in new voices, looking for opportunities for new perspective and new partnerships is always a key piece of that, and probably could help you refresh any piece of content. All right. Any last minute questions? I think that's it, folks. I appreciate all the great questions. If we did not get to your question, I apologize. Make sure to hit us up on Twitter. You're welcome to email as well, jason@socialfresh.com. Really appreciate your time today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks to Oracle Marketing Cloud. Go to oracle.com/marketingcloud for more information. If you want more information on Social Fresh Conference, go to socialfreshconference.com. We'll be in Tampa, September 23rd to 25th. And we really appreciate you joining us. We'll have some follow-up emails. We'll have the video sent out. And we appreciate your time today. Have a great week.